Welcome to another nerdy review. I'm your host Zaku, and today we're going to be reviewing Mobile Suit Gundam F91. Now, before I begin with any of the details here, let me just give you the following. If you're watching this on Twitch, make sure to follow me on my Twitch account here. If you're watching this on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please leave a comment down below. I want to know what you guys think about this movie or what you thought about my opinion on this movie. And if you want to keep abreast about what I am doing or when I'm going to go live, follow me on my Twitter account. On my Twitter account, I announce when I'm going to go live, what reviews I will be doing next, and of course just random things here. And with that said, let's go ahead and start off the story here about F91. In Universal Century 0123, when the Crossbone Vanguard attacked Frontier 4, a colony, Seabook Arno and his friends get dragged into a conflict while Cecily Fairchild gets pulled into her royal heritage. And that is the gist of the movie itself. We have a little bit more of an evolving plot from that point here, but that's how it starts off, at least. So here's some fun points and factors I want to provide you guys for the film itself. Now, this movie was originally released in 1991 here. It was originally supposed to be a 52-episode series. However, all of that was scrapped by Tomino, and he decided to turn this one into a movie. I'm not sure ascertained why. I couldn't find out reasons why. I thought it was, the series got canceled after making 13 episodes or so. Not a lot of information I could find online regarding why it got canceled, though. But as what we do know is that it was originally set to be a series and was turned into a movie instead. Now, this movie clocks in at 2 hours. And boy, does it show it with the pacing. I would akin this very much to the original Mobile Suit Gundam trilogy movies in the terms of pacing and storytelling. So that's going to play key and pivotal to what I'm going to be talking about in a little bit. Animation in this movie is actually a very comfortable, 90s animation. I feel very at place when watching this one. It's very similar to what we currently see in a lot of 90s-esque Gundam series. Not that it set the standard, but it's kind of that merge between the 80s and the 90s. Lot more harder lines, not too flush on the coloring, too flush on the color. Contrasty still, and more defined features and characteristics, especially details on mobile suits too. In fact, one thing I liked about the animation in F91 is that when suits kind of go off in the distance, sometimes in older series or movies, it kind of distorts the animation a little bit or whatnot, gives a lot less detail. F91 actually has a little more attention to the detail. As the suits still go off into the distance, we still see detail on that suit. Rather than becoming some kind of weird little blur of lines and color, we actually see the detail of the suit. So I think that's something really nice and unique about it that I appreciate in F91. It also gives a lot more definition and details towards a lot of the suits, which I will show you guys too. It's kind of unique with some of the suit designs. I'll show you quite a bit of them, actually. We'll get to that segment in a little bit. Music-wise, I really love majority of the music in this movie. It's super fitting for it. From the subtle music to the action sequence-esque music. Even the main theme song of this movie, I really like it. I want to find that song because it's super enjoyable. I won't say that this is really high tier with the music that I enjoy from the Gundam franchise, but it gets pretty high up there. The theme song at least carries it very up there. I do have to mention the most infamous song in this movie, though, and it's the copied version of the Imperial March. They use the dun 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 dun, that portion pretty much. There's a sequence in the movie where we see Crossbone Vanguard soldiers flying out, and that's where we have that song used in there. Very blatant ripoff of the Imperial March from Star Wars. So not all the music, and that's why I said most of it. That's the one example of really, why did you do that? I get what they're trying to do with trying to tell a royal lineage story. It almost feels like a retelling of anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself into the storyline and stuff like that. Moving along, I'm still just though very surprised that The Imperial March song wasn't really noticed, and surprised they got away with it. That's my only thing I want to throw in there. 2 cents on that. Voice acting, mwah, top notch. This is probably one of my favorite voice actings in the time frame of the Gundam releases. Now, this is alongside with a lot of 90s Gundam releases that came out on the mid 2000s or so. So a lot of it's very similar or familiar voice actors too. But everybody is pitch perfect for their characters. I love every single voice actor and actress in this movie. Brings everybody to life, brings everybody to their full characteristics. Just phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. Not one character sounded like garbage where I'm like, oh my god, my ears. No. It's great. Fantastic acting, or voice acting in this case. So this film is very notorious for its neck break speeds and pacing. Now, I did akin it earlier to the original Mobile Suit Gundam trilogy movies in the terms of like kind of like the cutting and editing too. A little bit, and I do mean by the pace too, because it is pretty fast. But this one's a little bit more egregious with it. I say that because it's a little bit hard to compare, like, with the original Mobile Suit Gundam, we could see like the comparisons of like what they took out and what they put into the movies, right? F91, we don't have anything to compare it to, so it's kind of hard to tell like what was cut was vital and then what was sloshed together. Because of the pacing of the movie, just like how the original Mobile Suit Gundam was, there's not a whole lot of character development. In fact, it feels very janky when it comes to character development. Some of it feels awkward or super forced. In this case, like for example, like with Seabook, a lot of his character development moments feel very forced and not really like, not that it's not elaborated on or anything, but just feels very forced and just very quick. Happens and then like, okay, I gotta change. That then moves on. That's basically it right there, right? With Cecily, because she's being reintroduced into the Rona family, her royal heritage, a lot of her character development is just awkward. At moments, she accepts the fact of the matter. Like, at one moment, she's happy to see her family, then she doesn't want to be with her family, then she wants to be with her family, and it's not very clear about this, or she's not clear about what she wants to do. And it's not that, like, some not sexual, but it's, sexism-esque things, which, you know, a lot of older animation could be, akin to. But that's not the case here. I attribute it towards the editing and what scenes they decided not to introduce into the movie or scenes that were developed. I feel like Cecily's character could be a lot more further developed, or finding out like what she's feeling or how she's conflicted. At best, there are some indications about it because of how she felt about losing out on Seabook and stuff like that. So it somewhat makes sense. But a lot of her character development moments feel incredibly awkward and almost at times doesn't make sense. I've watched this movie. This is probably my like 6th or 7th time because I actually do enjoy this movie a lot. And it took me a while just to finally get an idea about Cecily's character, right? I will throw back that into like, because I'm watching everything in a timeline rather than, you know, jumping here and there, right? I'm watching it on a smooth timeline. It's starting to come together a little bit more. But yeah, overall though, like I feel like the character development for these two in particular, because these are our main focus, everybody else is sidelined. So just to encapsulate it all though, but yeah, a lot of the film cuts out a lot of character development, and the ones that we do focus on are two main characters of the movie. A lot of their character development, again, is very forced or very awkward or janky. So that's some downfall on the movie itself. Another downer with this fast-paced editing and storytelling is location. A lot of times, and again, this is my 6th or 7th time watching this film, and I find myself lost at times of where we're at. Are we on Frontier 4? Frontier 1? Are we now in the Rona place? Are we on Earth? Are we on another place? It's very confusing at times where we are location-wise. And the movie doesn't bother to tell you what the location is. So you're just kind of like, let's go! Warp speed into the storyline. And that's basically it, you know? Like, just take it in there. It's a roller coaster. So that's some things that kind of, you know, are about the movie. But the one thing that really the movie shines in is the action. How fast paced this movie goes. And yes, it takes almost an hour before we get to the titular F91. There's still quite a bit of action in this movie. A lot of action. A lot of fighting, a lot of destruction and stuff like that. So it's super involving, super exciting. It's very enjoyable, actually. Not enjoyable in the sense of like, oh, watching destruction on it, but it keeps you entertained. It keeps you engaged. So it's a very fun movie to watch. Some fun factors or things I want to mention. Now, I say fun, but this is not fun itself. But this movie is pretty gruesome with deaths and death-like moments. It really does have Tomino's touch. He is the director, and it does has his touch with some really, really dark and grim moments. I think this is probably one of his darker movies. Where, you know, like I mentioned in the Charles Counterattack, there are some pretty surprising deaths or whatnot, but sometimes the deaths are not like, you know, like crazy or whatnot. There's some deaths in this movie that had me kind of disturbed. Like, it shocked me for a moment. Like, even though I'm rewatching it, I'm fully immersing myself into this. I'm letting you guys know again, too, like, when I'm watching these, 100% attention is given. No games, no nothing. I'm paying 110% attention to it, and I'm trying to analyze everything I'm watching of it. And man, sometimes, like, some of those moments, like, you wouldn't catch it. It's one of those, like, you blink and you miss it kind of a moment. And I caught some of those. So one thing that stuck out to me, and I've probably seen it before, and it just didn't struck out to me, but one of the more horrifying moments in the movie was at the very beginning when Frontier 4 was being attacked by Crossbow and Vanguard. And you had a G cannon shooting out its Gatling gun from the shoulders, right? And the casings were ejected. Now, this kind of go back to realism, right? They were being ejected, and as one of the casings fell and bounces off, it hits his mother with a child, killing her. And Seabook and his friends saw the baby as it was crying. They were trying to rescue it. But my God, that was horrifying. It's like you see it, and you see it hit this woman, and it's one of those things like in real life you would see, like, it doesn't look like it would hurt you as much or kill you. It looked like it would hurt, but it wouldn't kill you. And then knowing that the full force of how that of a giant object, like a huge, I'm assuming it's brass, right? A huge brass object falling down, bouncing, and then recoiling and smacking you in the head with full force. And you think about that, it's like, wow, that adds a lot of that level of realism. And then, you know, you see the Seabook's friends coming up to this mother and child, and you see her. She's clear. She's gone. She is dead. And I was like, wow, that was a shocker moment. Another one was when Seabook's friend Arnold dies. Or Arthur. I'm sorry, Arthur, if I'm remembering his name correctly here. When Arthur dies, the way he gets there was an explosion nearby the gun tank, and he gets flown and hits the wall like a rag doll. And then falls down, and he goes into zombie-eyed mode. He's done. And that level of realism and stuff like that, it just hits. It's just like, wow, there's a level of shock behind it. Even though we don't get too much of a familiarity with this character, we've only been with him for like less than 10 minutes, but it just it's a bit startling at moments, you know. It's dang, that's all I gotta say. Other than that, like, you do see like a lot of dead bodies or like people being exploded. Of course, you see the traditional like pilots die in suits, but they're pretty graphic deaths at times too. Space Hamburger is not a joke. When you see someone getting exploded or vaporized inside of a suit and turned into a space hamburger, some of these scenes can be pretty like, wow, that's intense for something in the Gundam franchise. So yeah, this movie's pretty gruesome. Surprisingly gruesome. I didn't expect that. There's also showing moments like, kind of going back to my Charles Counterattack arguments too, like we could see how, like, well, not too much of that, but we see how the Federation is absolute garbage at this point here too. Not only are they letting people still have more having more fights and stuff like that, but they're willing to use civilians, even civilian children, as shields to protect themselves, like selfish jerks. So that's another adds portions to the gruesome or that realism factor. And I kind of touched about this in another review, or so I think the closest one I would have talked about was Unicorn, but we get another example of Char and Garma clones. Particularly, we see with the Char and Garma clones. Now, before I've described them as like they are like mostly they resemble the characters that I speak of. Like a Char clone looks like Char, wears a mask, is of somebody of a higher position, usually is the antagonist, right? And a Garma clone would generally exhibits the physical characteristics of Garma. Usually it's that purple hair and purple eyes, and sometimes the characteristics of Garma, whether he's infatuated with the Char clone or is friendly with the Char clone. Not always the same though. In this case, this is one of the earliest examples of a Char clone and a Garma clone. If I'm not mistaken here, we've come to several of these. I didn't actually count this out, but of course, by this time frame, 1991 here, beforehand, we have the OVAs of Gundam 0083, Gundam 0080. We also had Char's Counterattack, the movie, and the theatrical release, and then we also have Double Zeta, just the kind of precursor of those. And Zeta was the fourth, Char being the fifth, 6 and 7. This would be like the 8th entry, if I'm not mistaken here, if I'm counting correctly. It could be 8th or 9th here of the Gundam franchise. And this is our first examples of a Char and Garma clone. The Char clone in this case would be Kuroso or Iron Mask, Cecily's father in the Rona family. And then we get the Garma clone, which is her brother and son to Kuroso. Or Iron Mask. I'm not sure how I want to call him. I call him Kuroso, but he goes by Iron Mask as well. But we see them too, and they're merely characteristics of them. Albeit Kuroso's is a little bit more towards Char because of his actions. I'm not gonna spoil that, but if you get to the past halfway point in the movie, you'll know what I mean. Like kind of similar to Char, I would akin it towards a CCA or Char's Counterattack Char, right? Her brother, and his Doriel is his name, it's just purely by looks. He's not enamored with Iron Mask or Kuroso. He is not befriending him or anything like that. It's just purely by looks. So that's something I wanted to point out here too. Not like what we see in Unicorn Gundam many years later. I would say almost 2 decades later. No. About a decade and a half at least, right? Where they play off more towards the Garma clone with the homosexualization of Garma towards Char. That infatuation and love that he has. That's pretty much all I really want to say about the characters, or at least with our Char and Garma clones here. Lastly, though, I mean, like, this series was supposed to be, and I'll show you that. I mean, this movie is supposed to be a very nice. I mean, from beginning to end, even though it was very, very fast paced and told very, very quickly, had some interesting moments, characters. Story was actually kind of interesting too. I would have really loved to see this actually as a full series. A 52 episode series or a 50 episode series would have been awesome. Really do enjoy what it almost seems like almost like a retelling of Zeon, like a Zeon storyline, but it's not. It's something else, and it's really, really exciting. Definitely would have loved to see a newer series, not newer series, but a series based on this. Not terribly too much of a spoiler, but at the very end of the movie, it says like this is only the beginning, and then it leads off to like kind of like what I like to call like a follow-up type of an ending, right? The movie ends off very nicely. I like the final conflict and all that jazz, and everything else that ends up to that. But there's that huge titling, like this is only the beginning. But that's because this series, F91, actually has a sequel. Unfortunately, though, it never got a animation out of it. What we got, though, and some of you might have heard of it, is Mobile Suit Crossbone Gundam. And that is the sequel to F91, where we deal a lot more with Cosmo Babylonia, the Crossbone Vanguard, and the Crossbone Gundams. And of course, we continue with our two characters here too. So it's really, really cool. Unfortunately, that has never got a animation OVA or another movie even. I would really have loved to see that continuation of it. So it'd be kind of cool. Maybe like in the future, Bandai Namco Sunrise would redo F91, turn this into a full-fledged modernization series. Maybe following alongside with what we already seen with like Unicorn Gundam and stuff like that. Make that a modern one, and then we would have the sequel that is Crossbone Gundam. I would have loved to see that. Unfortunately, what we have now is a compiled 2-hour movie at crazy speeds, still very entertaining. And if you want to follow the adventures of Seabook and Cecily, you can follow that in the manga versions of, or the manga format of Crossbone Gundam. So that's all I really want to say in terms of the movie itself. I do want. So this next segment here I wanted to start up again was the suits that I liked from the series, or new suits that they introduced. So just like every other new entry into the Gundam franchise, every series or movies introduce like new suits, remakes of the suits, or redesigns of them. F91 is no different from that. In fact, F91 introduces a ton of new suits. In fact, I mean, we kind of see some of these. I don't count this one at all because it's not in the previous series. I don't even remember seeing a Zaku one, but I remember seeing a Zaku 2 and a Gelgoog in the museum. Not used, it's just, a suit standing there. And then we see some Jagan types or Jigen types fighting in Frontier 4. Other than that, every other suit is brand spanking new. The designs of the suits are not great. I think a lot of them are kind of ugly. But, okay, so I just want to show you some of them. You'll see what I mean. So here's the heavy gun type. If I'm not mistaken, Barragate is the one that uses it. Barragate, yeah. Barragate uses this heavy gun. It's an okay looking suit. Reminds me of like a beefy GM alongside with a gun cannon. It's okay. Then here's the G cannon. Remember I was telling you about the gruesome death from the mother with the shell casing, or the casing, or cartridge casing from this Gatling gun? Yeah, this is the suit. There's like firing off and then expelling casings, and bam, one bounces and smacks the mom in the head. Ooh, that was pretty hardcore. You see what I'm saying, that the designs are okay. Now, the Cosmo Babylonia / Crossbone Vanguard suits gets a little bit weird. They're very Darth Vader-ish, and that kind of makes sense with that so cheesy rip of the Imperial March. But here's an example of one of the suits. Kind of hard to see it. Maybe if I turn it, yeah, it gives it a little more you can see a little more definition of the colors, right? But definitely is kind of like a weird design or weird looking suit. I'm not a huge fan of this one here. This is Cecily's suit here. Very looking, almost Gundam-esque though, but I'm not a huge fan of that one. And then we get another one here too. This is her brother's, Dorel's, and there's a couple of others that use this one. This is not terribly that bad. It reminds me of a Spartan mixed with a knight, because it's got the spear, the shot lancer is what they call these ones here. Interesting. Another thing I like about it, a lot of the suits have the beam shields, which are really, really cool. I like the beam shields. They're nice looking designs, and interesting utilization. But I do have two suits I do like in this movie. Unfortunately, I don't have a good image of the first one I want to show you guys, and obviously you can see the titlings, but the Denizon. The Denizons actually look kind of cool. Zaku-esque, but not truly Zaku. The helmets are weird, though. I don't know if you guys seen the movie Toys with Robin Williams. I think it was the 1994 movie, or 94-93 movie. Really weird. But they had these like weird little tank toys. I swear to God, those tank toys ripped off the Denizon design. Because they have these like Vader helmets, right? With the big goggle eyes and like the little vent mouth and all that jazz. Reminds me very much like this. But with F91 kind of ripping on Star Wars, I'm going to say both of them ripped off of Star Wars primarily, but I want to say the person whoever did Toys ripped off the Denizon design, because it looks very much like the Denizon. In fact, but yeah, look at that. So you got the giant goggle eyes. You got the helmet looking thing, and you kind of got that little vent mouth. And I was like, it looks like a direct rip. Almost. Not quite, but still. You see what I'm saying, though. Anyways. Before you jump to F91, I kind of spoiled it already, but I hate that they don't have the colors, but the suit in the black colors is really cool looking. It also does this like kind of weird cool thing where its eyes, kind of like a Zaku when the Zaku eye turns on and it makes a sound. It makes its own special sound effects with the eyes kind of like going slant like that, like a static slant. I thought that was kind of neat little touch to it. Overall, I mean, it's a neat little design. Very menacing looking, very Stormtrooper-esque. Very, I want to say like Stormtrooper, like Star Wars / Warhammer 40,000-esque or 40K. So that's what I want to throw in there. I like this design right here a bit. But of course, nothing compares to it like the F91. Let's just check out some of these other colorings. But yeah. The F91 is a really cool looking suit, very sleek. I mean, just like the name Formula 91, it almost looks like a, I can't say like Ferrari or Lamborghini of Gundams, but it's a very sleek design, very unique with the chest cockpit, alongside with the way that the cockpit opens up too. Most suits up until this point usually have suits that open up from the chest here. Some of them open up from the head. This one actually has a sliding door with an openable hatch. So I thought that was kind of cool. Let me see if I can show it to you. Cockpit hatch. See? The thing would slide down and then the hatch would open up. Very, very unique for a Gundam, basically. So that was cool. Its capabilities with the after images and the VSRB, the variable speed beam rifles, I think that's what they're called. Ah, VSRBs, yeah. Because that thing in the back turns into like double guns, and it's pretty cool. And it's got its own little shield too, compact and pops in and out to give beam shield. Overall, I really like the design of the F91. It's very sleek, very nice, very simplistic too, by the way. I really do appreciate sometimes the simplicity in designs. You don't have to go too crazy. Yeah, of course you see me. I like my like bulky suits at times. Not too bulky. I don't need like Rob Liefeld-esque style bulk. No offense to Rob Liefeld or anything, but I'm just trying to paint a comparison here. I do like bulky suits or roundish, smooth type suits or whatnot. But I do appreciate simplicity sometimes. I do have my like design heavy features, details and stuff like that. But sometimes simplicity is really, really key. So that's all I have to say about my favorite suits from the movies here. But let me start on my next segment here, which is I'm new to the Gundam franchise. Should I watch F91 first? This one is where I'm going to say yes, actually. Yes, start with F91 first. First and foremost, this is a very self-contained movie. You honestly do not need to watch any of the previous movies or series to jump into this one at all. In fact, much of the information from all of them don't really play any real pertinence to other than new types. That's it. Other than that too, because the movie has its incredible fast pace and it's very well paced in my opinion here, albeit the editing is sometimes that janky or weird. It reminds me a lot like the original Mobile Suit Gundam trilogy movies, where it throws away a lot of character developments and a lot of type of like focus on other characters. We really focus on our main characters for the most part, even though sometimes their character development can be weird or awkward. Everything's very self-contained, very, very well paced. I think, and especially since this is a 2-hour movie, this is something that you can jump into, not having to watch any of the previous information and really just enjoy it. That being said too, the story is very similar to like the original Gundam, not so much so, just very similar. Again, a space colony looking to have their own independence, but they are doing it by taking over other colonies and stuff like that. So it's a different story in itself. And a lot of Gundam's themes do play off very well into this movie. Again, war is terrible, war is tragic. Whoever wins, the innocent lose. No one, well, the innocent lose, love, the innocent lose. She's trying to correct me if I'm, no. But yeah, it's That's how I feel about F91. I think it's a very nice, very easy jump into movie that encapsulates a lot of key points that makes the Gundam franchise, alongside with not giving off the wrong message or anything like that. It's super easy. It's super self-contained. I think it'd be a fine starter if you have to start off with F91. All right, and with that said, as for the overall of the movie, Mobile Suit Gundam F91 is what I like to call a deliciously formulaic mess. While it was intended to be a full-length 52-episode series, which then got crushed down into a 2-hour-long movie, it goes at ludicrous speeds from beginning to end to tell a huge war story. With much of the character development getting either axed or rushed through, it does make up for it with an interesting and new story, alongside with a lot of intense action that makes this a very enjoyable watch. This movie is a mess, but it's fast, it's fun, it's F91, and it's definitely a Gundam movie I highly recommend a watch. It's a fun one, I guarantee it. Mobile Suit Gundam Formula F91 gets a solid 4 out of 5. Yeah, I know it's going to be a controversial score right there. Some people don't really like F91. I liked it a lot. Again, the pacing was just tasteful enough, alongside with the action. The story was there, even though the characters weren't. It's an enjoyable ride. I had fun watching it. It was very enthralling, very encapsulating, and I'm just sitting down like, okay, we're going fast. We're going on a roller coaster, and it's a fun roller coaster. I enjoyed it a lot. I think a lot of other people would enjoy this. Again, it does encapsulate a lot of themes and mannerisms of the Gundam franchise, and yeah, it's a shame it was not turned into a series. But you know what? The 2-hour movie, as much as it just crunches it all down, really hits all the fun points, I think. So definitely a one to watch. Now, if you haven't already, if you're watching this on Twitch, make sure to follow me on my Twitch account. If you're watching this on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this movie. Tell me what you thought about my opinion. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Did you think this movie was awful or awesome? What do you think? Let me know. I want to hear from you guys in the comments section down below. And if you want to keep up with what I'm going to be doing, or updates and all that fun stuff, make sure to also follow me on my Twitter account. On my Twitter account, I make announcements of when I go live, what my schedules are looking like, what I'm reviewing next, and random things here and there. With that said, I do want to thank you guys for watching this review, and until the next time, see you all in the next review. Take care.